Judge, students spend 12 or more years in school, yet they still require even more training before they can even begin earning a living. We believe that if education cannot prepare students for the real world, it has failed at the most basic purpose. Today, the opposition will ask you to maintain an education system that teaches the students many things, but often fails to prepare them for the future. We fundamentally reject that idea. We are so proud to propose. Moving on to three things in my setup. Number one, in the status quo, schools prioritize those broad general education. Students spend years learning a wide variety of like subjects regardless of whether those subjects are relevant to their future careers. Many graduates leave school with theoretical knowledge, but they still lack those like practical workspace skills, forcing them to pursue additional like qualifications such as like internships, like vocational training, and in order for them to be employable. Our stance is that the world we're trying to create is where schools place employment preparation at the center of education. Those students still receive the general knowledge, but the schools dedicate more time and resources toward practical skills like workspace like experience and directing the students towards the industries where the workers are actually needed. Now for burden clarification, our burden today is to prove that prioritizing those employment preparation gives greater number of students a better future by providing them with stable employment, financial independence, and a direct pathway in the workforce. Now, moving on to our substantive arguments. Our first argument is on how the education exists to prepare the students for independent adulthood. We believe that for many students, the primary purpose of childhood is to prepare the young people to function successfully as an adult. For almost every student, adulthood means like entering the workforce. This doesn't mean that our side is forcing those young students to go through like real medical procedures in order to become a doctor, but we will have the schools to teach the individuals in more depth about that subject instead of focusing on unrelated subjects. When those individuals become an adult after finishing the school, they wouldn't have a second chance or another opportunity to make mistakes because they have already transitioned into adulthood. They wouldn't be able to understand in depth about what they're actually achieving because in the education system, all they taught was like memorizing facts about every single subject. As a result, those students graduate possessing those academic knowledge but lacking the qualifications those employers actually demand. Also, schools should prioritize practical learning. This includes like vocational education, internship, like digital literacy, and science of teamwork. Students leave school early, already equipped with like employment rather than needing years to retrain after. Now, this could lead to, instead of holding the graduation paper that just proves attendance, they show qualification that genuinely opens doors. The magnitude clearly favors our side. Now, moving on to a second argument about how prioritizing employment preparation is like the greatest equalizer for disadvantaged like students. Our second argument concerns that students who need education the first place. Judge, not every student graduates into like families capable of like supporting years in a university, unpaid internships, or career exploration. For millions of low-income students, those schools are the only realistic opportunity and incentive to escape the poverty. General education unintentionally assumes that every student is luxury of like delaying employment and they can easily pay to enter college, but many do not. By prioritizing employment preparation, those schools give the vulnerable students practical qualifications that employers immediately value. Students graduate with technical skills, workspace experience, and recognized certificates which could allow them to enter stable careers and industries facing genuine labor shortages. Now, lastly, moving on to world comparison. In the propositions world, the students graduate with practical skills and transition directly into stable employment, and those businesses find qualified workers, labor like shortage shrinks and like unemployment falls, and more families escape poverty because the education delivers what the students need the most. It is a reliable path towards financial independence. That is why I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
Government may prepare students if the world stays the same, but their program fails in the long run when job market changes over and over again. Set up then two contentions, firstly on flexibility, secondly on how the job market is always changing. Set up then. Firstly, in the status quo, job markets frequently change too much, right? Now with the rising trends of AI, economists predict that the era will of experiences will change in some type of way in the next 2 to 3 years. This will keep happening. The job market will change frequently. Secondly, what does preparing students for employment look like? They give job trainings like educations that will be relevant to the jobs that they want to do, right? Chemists will only learn chemistry and other things related to their future job. And also we believe that this is going to be limited because the modern economy changes multiple times, right? And secondly, and thirdly, we believe that this program will be most likely adopted in the middle school, high school program because college is basically based on this already. And yes, and the elementary school years is way too young, right? And lastly, the counterfactual on our side, we keep the status quo's educational program that teaches students universal skills like critical thinking, but also we teach them general subjects like math, science, English, and more, right? And I'm moving on to our first contention on flexibility of job paths. Mechanisms here. Firstly, when kids are in middle school, students shouldn't have a single dream, right? They should have a variety of dreams so they can pick. In Gov world, students have to choose a single goal in life to work towards, right? A student who wants to be a math teacher will be in an education primarily for a math teacher. Same with English teachers being with English, architects being with architects. Educational path is the same, so there's no turning back. Yes?
Walk us through how a broad curriculum with no job at the end actually lifts a first-generation student out of poverty, please.
I'm guessing that the POI was asking how we're gonna create jobs. We're saying that when they go to college, they can choose jobs, right? College is a 4-year program, full of education. They're gonna be able to choose their job. They shouldn't have a fixed job right now. I'm moving on, right? So, impacts here. Students cannot have flexibility on GovWorld, right? When a child chooses one path, then they will be devastated when their chosen path does not work out. When this happens, they will have to redo their education from the start because they did not prepare for other jobs. Secondly, children's dreams don't stay the same, right? They do not have to be able to choose jobs, especially because they need to like what their job is. And also universal skills like critical thinking is way more important for employment. And in our world, general education like math, English, and more will be important for every job. And therefore, general education lets students be flexible but also prepare them. Moving on to our second argument on the job market and how it always changes. Mechanisms. Firstly, you can't prepare for everything, especially if you're preparing for something 15 years later after your education. A student who was no, thank you. A student who was trying to be a pilot may now have to be an architect because all AI pilots are the only ones who can have the ability to fly planes. The job market always changes and you have to be able to adapt. Students have to be flexible because if they are not, they cannot get a job. Government makes people who are rigid, people who focus on getting one job when it may not even exist in the next 15 years. Impacts here. First, students cannot have the ability to get a job in the future because if their plans don't work out, then they have to redo their educational program, right? But in our counterfactual, they have the ability to adapt in the different jobs because we teach general subjects so that students can branch out and get new jobs so that the job market offers, so that they're more flexible and also adaptable to the jobs that the job market offers. For helping the main stakeholders of this debate, the students, we take this debate home, proud to oppose from opposition bench.
Let me move on straight on to the rebuttals before I move on to my team's third and final argument and the extensions, right? Firstly, they had the main point on general education builds adaptability. But Judge, our first speaker already told you how this debate is not about waiting until college, just like it is about it is not about any elementary school, right? Both sides agree on specialization in college and general skills in elementary. The debate is about, do we try and force everyone into a generalized box in a secondary schooling or allow things like a vocational education and other such options? And as a proposition, we say yes, so proud to take this debate home. Then moving on to the second argument that they had is on the students should have dreams. But Judge, we tell you the priority of these practical jobs is not exclusivity. We're not saying that we would ban the other general education. We're saying that we're prioritizing this practical job. So we're doing this on top of the other things, which means that makes us exclusive in the first place, which means that we secure a livelihood first, then build everything else on top of it. So we can clearly see that even on this, we win. Then move on to some exclusive benefits on our side of the house, right? Judge, opposition says that being well-rounded is important in today's debate. Okay, well, yes, but that was in the 1900s. Judge, when we're debating, we need to consider the status quo, and we tell you and clarify that in the current society, being well-rounded gets you nowhere. Why? Because in this 21st century, it's a fast and technologically developed and advanced society. It's no longer like in the 1800s or 1900s, when the more math problems you can solve in a second, you can get into NASA or just like in the Hidden Figures, right? It's no longer a world where just because you memorize more elements in the periodic table, you will suddenly become and get to become a scientist. No, AI can do all of that and a billion times faster than any of us, right? So in this world, what really makes humans use their exclusive quality is not being averagely good at all areas, because we tell you AI can all do that and better. Instead, focusing on the one profession and job is when you can best and we can best achieve our dreams. Why? Because if your dream is to become a doctor, for example, and you actually know how to, for example, just stitch someone's arm even before you get into university, this can save you so much time and effort for later, right? Studying multiplication, I don't accept the POI. We can just save that effort for later. Studying multiplication tables wouldn't get you that. So we tell you that as time moves on and progresses, things needs to change and adapt accordingly. And we tell you, Judge, that the one crucial thing that needs to change in today's debate is education. So we can clearly see that the exclusive benefit is exclusive to our side. They don't have it. So proud to propose. Now moving on to the second point is the point on how we don't have any exclusive harm on our side. Judge, opposition may say that if we only prepare these students for the practical vocations, then the students who want to get a non-practical job will be harmed. 2 years of response to this point from opposition then. Firstly, on our side of the world, we prioritize practical vocations, yes. But even in the worst case, these students actually get some level of education, because by learning from the other practical vocations, they can learn the core skills like collaboration, speech, promptness, and more. Moreover, in reality, even if we said that we teach these kids on non-practical jobs, that's not really a lot of difference, because when they actually go out and get a job, the essential skills that would all be actually learned and polished there. But what would we give you in today's debate is exclusive skill and life lessons, right? We train these kids that jobs are more than just solving 10 questions a day, but actually going out there and learning how to react to unexpected situations and etc. But think about how many students actually just turn out to become magicians. So even in our worst case, this is not really a great harm. So I've successfully mitigated this. But even if it'd be so terrible as to say, like, we proved this wrong, but even if not, it is not an exclusive harm towards our side, right? Because this is because even on their side of the world, if students have these non-practical jobs, they don't do anything to help prepare them for such jobs, right? Even at their side of the world, they don't give lessons on how to pull the rabbits out of the hat successfully. In fact, they are worse with this. Not only do they not prepare them with the non-practical jobs, they don't prepare the practical jobs that are actually in demand in the status quo. So not only is this harm not exclusive to our side of the house, but this harm is exclusive to their side of the house. For all these reasons, so proud to propose in today's debate. Thank you.
Few clarification before I move on to my third argument and prove why our side takes the debate from the get-go. Now, two clarification here. So even though their side is prioritizing employment over general education, we still believe that to some extent the individuals will still lose crucial skills, because when you prioritize it over, the two styles of education programs are completely different, meaning that one would actually be dominant over another, and we believe that they cannot really coexist like the DPM states. Now, the one who would have more crucial skills would actually be us, including examples like critical thinking, for example, which could be gained by like general subjects and so on. And moreover, I don't think that they're not listening to the point that the jobs in the market system will change so quickly for those curriculum in the government to actually change. Meaning that all of those people who take those kind of like job markets will not be able to adapt to this change as well. Now moving on to my rebuttals about about their first argument about how they prepare for their future. First of all, we believe that this is even going to be worse for their side because, as I said before, job market keeps changing, and also note that they have never clarified what they will teach in the job training, meaning that we can kind of assume
Go
there
on.
will probably be technical training skills like I don't know like engineering and whatnot, and we believe that those individuals will receive job training on things that will eventually disappear when they actually go to the job market themselves. And on the comparative, our side teaches them fundamental skills like critical thinking that can actually get them more into job market. And this is how the system actually works in the status quo as well. How do you think people nowadays get jobs? They actually get employed for their like
Point of
practical
information.
skills as well, but also crucial skills such as critical thinking and so on. And due to the recent like rise of AI and so on, we believe that job market will change frequently, which is why it is even more important to actually prioritize fundamental skills as well. Moving on to my second rebuttal about poor people. Now we believe that their side are the one that actually reinforces social inequality by leading poor people in the wrong way
Go
and in
on.
the wrong job in the market. I'll explain this more in my third argument. Moreover, DPM talks more about AI and modern society. However, we actually want to flip that idea and say that AI can take over the jobs that children might want. Moreover, we strongly believe that when time passes, job market quickly change, which can create children's job in the future as well. Now, moving on to my
Point
third
of
argument,
information.
which
Last chance.
yes.
Millions of jobs sit unfulfilled for the lack of trained workers while graduates cannot find work. Doesn't matching the two help everyone in the status quo?
We don't think so because, like I said in the clarification, those two cannot really coexist, and we believe that one will be dominant over each other. And the difference between your side and our side is that our side have more crucial skills like critical thinking, and those things will help those poor people and all individuals get more jobs than your side, which are basically useless. Now, finally, moving on to my third argument, which is about reinforcing social inequality. Three mechanisms here. A, low income students will only prioritize narrow technical training that will actually trap them in a cycle of short-term jobs that will be replaced by technology like AI, for example. And B, we believe that public schools, which will have less funding, will cut out subjects like art, history, philosophy, and focus on vocational training more than them because like prioritizing. And we believe that while wealthy families will comparatively focus more on liberal arts than the poor people, riches will be trained to become leaders and thinkers, while the poor will have no job to pursue when they get actually trained. And we believe that this general education as an impact is crucial for social mobility as well because it teaches them liberal context and they will not be able to challenge unfair law by the elites when they actually do not have any information about this general information. And for those reasons, so proud to oppose.
So two things in my speech today. Firstly, rebuttal. Secondly, the main clash in this debate. Moving on to rebutting the previous speaker and their side in general. So their side talks about this AI thing, AI changes and how therefore jobs change, etc. And they talk about how AI can take over jobs. But isn't this more likely on their side? Because if you think about it, their side only teaches like a very lack of depth, like calculations of math or very like memorizing sequences in chemistry. And that doesn't actually teach the critical thinking and specific skills needed in each field. Second of all, if jobs change because of AI, shouldn't the way teachers teach and the education system change too? Their side just depends on the AI idea of AI. Ello said that this debate is not really about the elementary school and we should wait until college. They're right about the debate is not about elementary, but wrong that we must wait for college. They never prove why or how society can afford to have all people wait for college years. The fact Diallo just called proposition side useless, that's literally a myth. He is not being charitable. For so training an electrician is like useless? No. Allowing a gifted student to pursue more of their interests is useless? No. Internships are useless. Name calling seems useless. Impacting is not. We get jobs. We help earnings. Moving on to the first question is then which side better prepares for the future? They talk about how they should have like students have a variety of dreams and how in that sense our world is unrealistic. Sure, that may be true. Students may have a variety
regimes. But that is why employment-focused education matters, because prioritizing employment does not mean making students going into one career
You know what?
the get-go, right? No, thank you, Judge. That is not the world that we are arguing for. That it means them. Our side is giving them practical, actually skills that they can transfer when doing jobs that make it easier to pursue different careers as their goals change, right? General education, learning like how to play percussion or like the drums alone does not guarantee that students can successfully enter or transition within this workforce. And as we said before, millions of jobs sit unfilled for lack of trained workers. While these graduates cannot find work, they stress over finding work every single day. We do not get why matching the two is a bad thing, like opposition claims. Now addressing the low-income students. Low-income students do not go to school just to learn philosophy and how to play drums. Their main objective when they go to school is to earn an income and survive in this world. Our world helps these students by helping them maximize their time spent in primary and secondary school and actually help them earn an income later, especially because for these poorer children, they cannot afford to go to college, which is a stage that essentially hones down to a specific topic in status quo in their world. Instead, they can learn these skills at an earlier age and have the ability to earn an income without going to college more easily than in our world than in opposition's world, therefore also making the workforce broader because there are more workers. Second clashes on the school's purpose, like what is school for? We say that the purpose of school and education is to prepare them for the future, to give them a secure livelihood. Without that, do you really think that the things we learn in school and status quo right now, like how to say like what's your name in French, or like even learning chemistry when you know you're interested in liberal arts, when you know you want to be in like this public relations job, right? Are these skills really important? Do they stick with you and actually help you in some way when living your adult life? We already know. They argue in turn that school's job is not to get a job and like earn an income, but rather to like develop being a full person. But just first of all, this is also possible on our side. Just because we are not focusing on increasing the student's knowledge and depth in a certain area does not mean that we are suddenly gonna like erase all of this critical thinking. In fact, critical thinking is more likely on our side because they get to actually experience using these skills that they should learn later on in while they work. So for all these reasons, very, very proud to propose.
This motion is about whether education should prioritize preparing students for employment over general education. Government wants to tell you that schools should become more practical, more job-focused, and more connected to the labor market in the future. But the problem with their side is simple. They only prepare students for the job market that exists right now or the present, while our side prepares students for the entire future. As opposition, we're not saying that jobs do not matter. Of course they matter. Students need money and opportunities after school. But the question is not whether employment is important. The question is whether education should prioritize employment over general education in the school. And we say no, because education is not just about producing workers. It is about creating people who can think and live freely in the future. First, let me deal with the government's main claim. They will say that employment-focused education helps students get jobs faster, but this is a very short-term benefit. The job market changes all the time. A skill that is used today may become useless tomorrow, such as such as AI or automation or economic changes that can happen in the future easily can change students' jobs or dreams in the present. So before I move on to this debate's two main clashes, some rebuttals. PM and DPM had a preemptions about how school will not force students to learn and solely prepare for one specific job and go in depths of various jobs. However, we strongly believe that this actually limits and does not engage the main idea that our side talked about. Moreover, the DPM oppresses the idea of prioritizing a certain job for students top of everything so they can get a look. However, we did not really receive a right rebuttal or an engagement that answers to this point that our side's previous speaker says about how students will pursue the jobs if you're becoming adults, such as in universities. They tell you that there are people who are without jobs and unfilled jobs. They're on their side more than our. We can be flexible and fit into the job needed, while government can't because they lack the education they need to be the job
What
that
are
is
the
open. So directly moving on to our side's first main clash, which side gives students more freedom and choice? And before I move on to clash, yes, POI.
whose children can afford years of general study before earning the rich or the poor or the students we're actually fighting for?
Yeah, so like our previous speakers mentioned, the rich and poor gap might happen, but the poor people also can have opportunities later in the future before actually having those job markets. And as we said about how job markets can easily change in the future, it easily pursue, especially for poor people. And we our side at least proposed that opposed that
Why?
the first class I was speaking of that POI. So the poor people can easily change that in the future, and also their job markets to actually promote more in the future. So moving back to my class, so the first class in this debate is about freedom. Government wants to frame their side as giving students more opportunities because they prepare them for jobs. But the problem is that their opportunities are actually very narrow. They're not giving students more choices. They are pushing students toward the jobs that are currently in demand. So on government side of the world, students are pressured to choose based on the economy. So moving on to the second main class, which side actually prepares students' future. The second class is about a future preparation. Government tells you that employment-focused education is practical. They say students need skills that help them get jobs. But the problem is that the future job market is not stable and jobs changes quickly, like I mentioned. So this is why government model is risky for especially for a lot of students, younger students. And if schools focus too much on preparing students for specific jobs, they may train students for future that no longer exist in the present. So for example, AI and automation are already replacing many repetitive tasks. At the end of this debate, the debate comes down to 2 points: short-term employment versus long-term responsibility. So government gives students narrow skills for the jobs that exist now. So for all of these reasons, so proud to oppose.
This debate has been messy from the start because the government did not understand the importance of changes in the market system and show the lack of engagement. And as a reply speaker, I'll review the debate and prove that why our side takes the debate home. No, so now the main clash of today's debate is that which side proves that their side has more and better jobs to students. Now, the government side says they prepare poor people for jobs and then people can get more jobs. But our side said that we have more adaptable skills and critical thinking. And because we have the ability to be flexible and have skills and critical thinking, we can adapt more to the changes in the job market. Then why do we still win? And why do we win? We win because their side never accepted that job market switches too frequently and the specific job that they teach in the vocational training will eventually be changed in the future anyway. Then the burden their side poses on our side is how our side is able to help poor people get ready for the future. The Honorable Speaker JK and I have already explained that even though we have issues on the status quo already, there will be more harms on their side as well due to the emphasis on vocational training over general subjects. This was exactly from my third argument, as those poor people will focus too much on job training and will not have the foresight to see the changes in the job market anyway. Now, even though we just bite the bullet and admit that their side is all right in all of their claims, we still win on the point that is the reality. The job market is going to switch anyway, and the side that prepares students against those changes is the winner. And we believe that our side does a better job in doing that to those students and the poor minority as well. And for those reasons, so proud to oppose.
Judge, to prove once again, the opposition is saying that they get critical thinking because of being generalists. They never prove that link. Judge, which is better, to learn a few words of every language or become fluent or one or two languages? Today, I have two main responses to their statements. Firstly, on flexibility, the opposition repeatedly told you that our education system creates rigid workers, while theirs create adaptable thinkers. But they create a false choice. The employment preparation is not the opposite of adaptability. Modern employers do not simply hire people because they memorized one technical skill. They told us how we prioritize on employment, and also we also learn skills like problem solving, like communication, work in teams, use of technology, and continue learning through their careers. So their case does not stand. These are exactly the skills developed through the modern vocational training apprentices and like those internships and like workplace education. Their argument assumes job preparation means teaching someone to perform one repetitive task forever. That might have been true decades ago, but it is certainly not true today. For example, coding programs do not simply teach one programming language. They teach logical thinking, collaboration, project management, and learning a new technology. A software developer who learns Python today can learn some things other like AI, engineering, cybersecurity because they already possess that practical foundation for continuous learning. In other words, we already provide the adaptability they claim is exclusive to general education. The only difference is that our students also graduate employable. Their world gives adaptability without guaranteed employment. Also, the debate is not if either side is open to change. The debate is about, number one, which side is better at allowing students choices, and second, which side is better for the most vulnerable stakeholders. We clearly showed how a kid who learns a trade can get paid, but the humanities education was never proven to help with doing electoral work or being a nurse. Secondly, on the change, that is why I am so proud to propose in today's debate. Thank you.